The next speaker is Cheryl Sidhom. She's from Kalwun Health North Clinic. Now this is actually in Queensland and the Gold Coast. And Cheryl is actually the practice manager at this service, and she's been here at the service for 18 years. And I've been involved with QAAMS since about 2001.
Hi. I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the Larrakia people and honour the elders past and present. And thank you for helping me here and keeping me safe. I have to apologise because the PowerPoint that's in the workbook is not what I'm presenting, because it was done 12 months ago and so much had changed. I thought I'd better do a deadly presentation that would suit the moment, and then I did it the day before I went on holidays, and when I tried to email it, it wouldn't go. So you've got the old one, and I'm just going to give you some updates. This is a potted history of Kalwun Health. The health service opened in February '94 in Mermaid Beach, one block from Millionaires Row. We probably weren't the most popular organisation at the time, but we survived. Until about the year 2000, and the rent was beyond us and our funding, so we moved to an industrial area of Burleigh. And the really good thing about it was for the first time we had ducted air conditioning, and everyone, not just the CEO and the doctor, had air conditioning. In 2007, the ILC purchased a building for us, and we finally had our own building, and we didn't have to worry about sticking posters on the wall and pulling paint off or any of those sorts of things. And we moved in July 2008. By that time we'd gone up to 17 staff, and I think at the moment we have 42. So we've grown quite a bit. We used to provide mobile clinics. We've got, you'll see a picture of the mobile van too, but there's a Fingal Goodwin Park in Coolangatta. Goodwin Park was a place where there were a lot of homeless people, and our doctor, we went for about 6 months, and then one of the patients pulled a knife on the doctor, and he kind of said, I don't think I want to go anymore, so they got a bigger health worker, and things were okay. We also do outreach clinics to Hack. We used to do to Karumba, but it doesn't exist anymore. And we're AgPal accredited. We're about to be ISO accredited. Isn't that lovely? No. The organisation had 4,153 current patients in September, 69.2% Indigenous. In 2010, we looked at statistics that showed 49% of Indigenous people lived north of Nerang, and we started talking really seriously then about needing to get into the north, because we were only seeing probably between 5 and 10% of people who lived in the north area. So they looked for some funding, and they found it in several different places, and they found a building and they fitted it out, and we moved to Oxenford. I was working at the practice manager at Miami at the time, and they asked if I would take a team up and start the clinic, and so we did. I just wanted you to look at this chart because it will show you Kumbamba. This column with the arrows is the growth rate from 2007 to 2012, and Coomera, which is part of the area that we're working at the moment, had 91.3% increase in their population. A little place called Pimpama had 91.8%, and even Upper Coomera and Willowvale, which is bushland, had 51.6%. And I'll tell you a little story about Pimpama. Pimpama used to have a one-teacher, one-room school. In 1964, they had 22 pupils. This year, we did eyes and ears at Pimpama School and they had 80 prep. There's multi-million-dollar building going on there. They've got demountables, you know, in every area of the school. It's just, if you go off the highway and have a look up there, the growth is huge. Oh, you can't see that first one. That's the Gold Coast, the very first photo. Just the area. And I've got all this impressive information about how big it is if you want to know. It's 83.5 kilometres long and 62.5 kilometres wide. And that's from surface to the desert. The second photograph, second picture is some very clever people at Quake said to me, send us 15 months worth of patients and we'll map where they live. And so all those purple dots are patients that we saw in a 15-month period from all over the place. So we've got some of you fellas' patients and all. The map on this side is, they also get, we don't want to keep some of them, do you mind? On this side is, the X is the Kalwun Oxenford Clinic, and the small circle is a drive time of 10 minutes, and the big circle is a drive time of 30 minutes, and that's as long as you don't go on the highway to get there. So, in the first photo, this is Oxenford. This Google Maps. Yes. And the white building on the bottom there where the smiley face is, that's where we moved to. And on one side we had sushi train, on the other side we had curry munches. And I'm not being rude, that's what it's called. So it was really beautiful. It was all white and blue and fresh and new and everything. First week the receptionist had a wallet stolen from under the front desk. And in week 3 we had armed hold up at the Westpac Bank in the middle of the building. So we knew it was a high crime area, but it was a bit worrying. In 2011, Dr. Graham Wright, who had been just down the road, applied for and received a grant to build a super clinic. And he came to Kalwun and said, could we have a letter of support? And our CEO said, yeah, sure, but we want room in the super clinic. We want it for nothing. And so I'm not sure what the rent is, about $1 a week or something for the next 5 years. So you can't really see us, but that's us there. This is the super clinic and that's us there. Now, since we moved here, we had McDonald's, BCF, Bunnings, Aldi's. It was like in 80 months really, there was all this building going on and it was like bloody hell. And apparently, opposite where the McDonald's is going to be Kmart next year. So, the demographic of the North Clinic is much, much different. 48% of our patients are under 14, which is quite interesting. In Miami, you can see under 14s is only 27%. And our patient database at the moment at Oxenford is about 95% Indigenous. We have not a lot of non-Indigenous patients. Those graphs just show you the growth in everything. Our first year was really slow and at times we all despaired that we'd ever get it going. But it's going and it's pretty good at the moment. They're just not really interesting to anyone but the people, the accountant. The blue, of course, is 2012, the maroon colour is 2013, and the green is 2014, and we pretty much have increased out of sight most of everything, except we're really, really good with health assessments, and we're really good with GP management plans. We're really bad with reviews. And we're getting better because we now have a care coordinator and she hustles people and makes them come in, and so that will improve. The bottom graph are the mental health statistics, and they are unbelievable. And I'll talk more about that in a moment, because the thing that I found was our diabetic patients and a lot of the other patients that we saw had comorbidities that included mental health problems. We have 87 diabetic patients in our patient list now. Oxenford patients list is 800, and we have 87 diabetics. We see 80 of them regularly. The other 7 are people who come stay with family and that sort of thing. So the blue shaded patients are the non-Indigenous patients, and you'll see that some are shared and some are north. One of the doctors who works at Miami works at Oxenford 2 days a week, so his patients will often come up to our clinic just to see that doctor. And we didn't have a DCA for a while, now we have one, and then we didn't have any internet, and then it wasn't working, and it was really, but we're about set to go. Most of our diabetics we got from other GPs, and the problem with that was we weren't then sure what information they'd been given or how they'd been given it, and so we had to tread fairly carefully in the beginning. We wanted to keep them if they wanted to come to us, but we didn't want to put them off. And the other thing was, quite often they didn't want to move their records just in case they didn't like us, and they wanted to go back to the other doctor, and they thought the other doctor might get shitty if they moved their records. So it was, a real balancing act for a long time. We didn't have the room in the beginning to have a nurse-led diabetic clinic. Now we do, and we're about to, week after next, we've got a diabetic nurse coming up. And we've already got dietitian, podiatrist, psychologist and occupational therapist who will join in the clinic. And we also use soap, and I'm not sure, I know people in remote areas have M-soap specialists. We have U-soap, urban specialists. And we've asked for an endocrinologist, and he'll probably start towards the end of the year. But we've got a whole list of endocrinologists and physicians that do e-health. So we're Skyped and jabbed and Ubered and logged me in and all ready to go. We've done, I think, 2 e-health consults. And then we had one added to the list who's got a totally different communication system. We just said, bugger that. So, as I said, I was looking at the diabetic patients and how many of them were having mental health plans included in their planning. And so I went off to the PenCat tool, which I love to hate, and found these stats. The top ones are Miami, and the bottom ones are ours. And it was a little bit suspicious. So that question begged to be asked, oh, there's some pictures. We get celebrities on the Gold Coast. Yeah. So that's the clinic, and the star is where we are. We have QAAMS in the building, and we have people who still don't make it to QAAMS. That's why our advantage is really important. And on this side is the building at Miami. And the staff in the middle there are the original staff that went to Oxenford. So this is the picture of the Gold Coast that most people think, that's what the Gold Coast is, and pretty much it is. We have beaches and high-rises and meter maids and convention centres and casinos, all those kinds of things. We have fabulous sporting stadiums that the Titans can't afford anymore. They're moving out to Coomera. We have an Aboriginal cheerleader squad, girls cheerleader squad, and they actually won a competition, a national competition. We've got theme parks, we've got universities, we've got light rail, we even got freshwater holes. with eels. Griffith Uni, where you can see the sporting fields, that was Aboriginal land that was loaned or leased to Griffith Uni for 99 years by the local Aboriginal community. So it still belongs to them, but it's being used. And the hospital on that side is the Rabina Hospital. It's been there quite a while now. Originally it was built by the nuns, and they went broke and government took it over and now it's a public hospital. And this is the brand new hospital. This is the University Hospital it's called, right? But don't get crook and go there because it costs you $8 an hour parking. If you're crook, go by ambulance. So then I thought, well, are there any negative barriers to living on the Gold Coast? And this was the first one I found. The first picture is an area of Nerang. There are 132 dwellings in the multi-dwelling area and 92 in the housing area, and they are on the same amount of land. Now, if you think about the people that are living in the multi-dwelling areas, they're 2 and 3 bedroom units, which sometimes house 2 or 3 families, short-term or long-term, holidaying or not. And that's Nerang, where one of the biggest cohorts of the Aboriginal population on the Gold Coast live. And this side is Pacific Pines, which is one of the suburbs that we get our patients from, and huge number of gated communities, right? It's a really euphemistic term for a developer who made a lot of money out of a little bit of space. And the bushland you see down the bottom here, the houses are quite big and quite roomy, and the kids have lots of room to play. So the kids from this area, they'll play there, don't they? And you can imagine how that goes down. And it's a very, very hard way to live. It's particularly when you consider that in almost every gated community there's a dealer who will provide you with anything that you want that's against the law, and even some stuff that's within the law. People living in areas like this, and this is way up on a hill, away from shopping centres, they must be you, they lose their licences, they drive unlicensed, they lose their cars are confiscated, they borrow someone else's. It's just a really horrible way to live. And if you look at this one, if you look on our side of the highway, right, there's very little in the way of health services at all. And if you see the little place called Maudsley, they have one doctor and almost nothing else, and then the doctor's surgery burnt down. It was really terrible. Well, for the doctor anyway. A lot of mental health services. I mean, psychologists and psychiatrists obviously like to live on the beach. What over there? I mean, over here. Because this is where the problem is. We don't want to live where the problem is, do we? This is the bus link. Again, the number of bus stops on the beach. Tons and tons. Get over here to Maudsley, none, and Maudsley, no. But, look at these two. 2 bus stops. No route, but 2 bus stops. So we don't have any buses there yet, but eventually I guess we'll have some buses. It's crazy. We've got 2 railway stations that are quite near, in remote terms particularly, quite near our service, but that's as far as you can get before you have to pay a lot of money to get on a bus to get to where we are. It's quite difficult. These they're just interesting facts, and I bought some copies of this document if anyone's interested. But the population growth, 30.7%, and Australia 17. The households rent, I can't see it on there, but it's huge. It's 350 is the average, and 285 is the norm for everywhere except Darwin and Perth, where there are mining people apparently. The CEFA scores are falsely elevated because there are so many people who earn such a lot of money. Domestic violence is dreadful. Child Department of Communities Intervention, we had on the Gold Coast 31% of all the coast cases in South East Queensland, and children under 4 years, 34% of all of the intervention orders in South East Queensland. So I thoroughly depressed you now. These are the Indigenous stats. Unemployment rate, 16.2, which is dreadful. Moved house in the last 5 years, that's crap, I'm telling you now. 56% is rubbish. People move at a much, much faster rate than that. So I don't know who they were asking. Median age, Indigenous 21, non-Indigenous 37. So lots of Gold Coast Council funds are spent on senior activities. Maybe white fellas can be senior at 37, I'm not sure. But it seems a bit crazy to me. We have the same problems that you have everywhere else. Except that we have a pub on every corner that has 6 to 8 poker machines in it, which doesn't make life easier. We have 30 different schools in the Northern Corridor, so social isolation is huge. If you weren't born on the Gold Coast, or you didn't come to marry someone that was born there, you could be depressed in a very short period of time because you don't see another face that's recognisable in any way. Team sports, where you would probably meet other Indigenous families, cost such a lot of money, and if you've got 4 kids that want to play sport, it's out of the ballpark. So then I was really depressed, and I thought, oh my Lord, by the time I moved. And I had asked myself, was there any positive? Yes, yes, yes. We have an elders group called Karuglo, and the people who receive funding don't move without consulting them, which is wonderful, like the Medicare Local, and even our board are frightened of them. It's really, really excellent. They do a really good job. Kalwun Development, who is our parent body. We have Child Safety Services, we have HAC, we have Kalwun Housing, not much of it, but some. Queensland Health has an Indigenous unit, which is interesting. We have hospital liaisons officers who are great. Medicare Local have 2 Indigenous workers, project officer and my best friend Tracy, who does everything. Don't really get started on IUE or Quake. And the key stakeholders, of course, which are the community, and there's strength in that community, as we're finding out. So we have lots of social days. Guess which one's the principal doctor? Jeremy's been there 20 years here. And that's the van in the second picture there. We do youth programs. We have at Maddox Road, at a community centre, we have gardening. They have big garden troughs that people can own for themselves and grow stuff in. And we have more celebrities, lots of celebrities. At Oxenford, we have a women's group, a World Women's Group. And occasionally they let the guys come along. They had a craft throwing spears and boomerangs and stuff like that. And men wanted to come, and the women said we have to vote on it. And they're pretty strong too, the women they're really good. And we've got some young ones, so we're starting on the next generation as well. And we've just had our 3rd successful breast screening day which has increased the breastfeeding out of sight. So we'll continue to do what we do for as long as we can do it. We had a sad occurrence where we had blood-related family, the children of blood-related family who had never met, come to our youth program. And it was awful to think that this was two first cousins from the same family, and they knew each other were somewhere on the coast, but they didn't know where, which is very unusual, because although people don't see each other very often, they usually know where people are. But yeah, these kids were cousins and they had never met. So we're trying not to let that happen again. And of course our goal is sustainability, with all the threats to our funding and the things that are going on at the moment. Financially at the moment probably Oxenford is sustainable, but we would not be able to provide the extended care without some funding. That's us.